So, caffeine. A lot of people consume it, it's in coffee, and it helps you stay awake. But how does it do that? Alright, here we go. Caffeine is a drug that stimulates brain activity. It does so by interfering with a process known as the adenosine sleep pathway. The adenosine sleep pathway is a form of cellular synaptic communication. It involves the neurotransmission of adenosine. This happens at junctions between neurons called synapses. So, what's adenosine? Well, in the case of this pathway, it's a neurotransmitter, which is a type of ligand. It comes from the decomposition of ATP, which is broken down throughout the day to be used as energy. As the day progresses, more energy is used. Therefore, adenosine builds up. Ligand. A ligand, in cellular communication, is a signaling molecule that binds to a receptor and initiates a biological response. Adenosine just so happens to have 4 different receptors it can bind to. They're all part of the GCPR family and lie on the surface of postsynaptic membranes. A1 and A3 receptors are responsible for the stimulation of neural activity and are inhibited by adenosine. Conversely, A2A and A2B receptors are activated by adenosine. They produce sleep drive and are partially responsible for the production of GABA. GABA is related to a decrease in activity between neurons. The transduction pathway of these 2 receptors is complex and not yet fully understood. After receiving the signal, A2A and B undergo conformational changes. Consequently, their G proteins are activated by an ATP and detached. The proteins are then bound to adenylate cyclase, an enzyme, which facilitates the synthesis of cyclical AMP, or CAMP, from the ATP within the G proteins. CAMP acts as a secondary messenger. It initiates a phosphorylation cascade of protein kinases, which results in a cellular response. This response phosphorylates a calcium ion pump, which allows calcium ions to enter the cell and potassium to exit. It also involves vasodilation. It has to do with GABA production. To sum it up, the adenosine sleep pathway makes you tired. What does caffeine have to do with all of this? Caffeine is a stimulant that is part of the methylantine family. To a nerve cell, it looks identical to adenosine. So when it enters the bloodstream through the gastrointestinal tract, it travels and attaches to the same receptors as adenosine. It acts as an antagonist and competitive inhibitor of adenosine, meaning it blocks it from doing its job. So, what does this actually do? To start, without adenosine, sleep drive and GABA are not produced from the A2A and B receptors. Adding on to that, the same neural processes blocked by the other receptors aren't, meaning hormones related to neural activity are continuously produced. Without rest, this increased neuron firing results in a response from the pituitary gland, which releases epinephrine, or adrenaline. Once epinephrine has been released into the system, the body shifts into a mild fight or flight state. This causes an increase in heart rate, widened air passages in the lungs, and a boost in blood flow to muscles, as your body prepares for heightened activity. At the same time, it temporarily raises metabolic rate and can lead to an increase in glucose availability in the bloodstream. These combined effects create the feeling of alertness, energy, and focus that people associate with caffeine. However, because the caffeine blocks adenosine rather than removing it, the adenosine continues to build up. That's why, once the caffeine wears off, people often experience a crash, as the accumulated adenosine suddenly interacts with its receptors. Some other negative side effects include dehydration because of increased urination, headaches, and dizziness. Also, as a result of inhibited pathways, the body synthesizes more adenosine receptors, so caffeine tolerance may be built over extensive periods of consumption. In addition, withdrawal symptoms may follow an abrupt stop of caffeine consumption. These symptoms include temporary jitters and anxiety. All in all, caffeine is an interesting tool, drug, and inhibitor, and is relatively safe for consumption. So the next time you need a pick-me-up, coffee won't hurt.